Welcome to the second talk organized by the Sanatan Dharma group within our organization. My name is Sanjay Kucheria, and I'm the convener of the various Sanatan Dharma groups, including the ones for Hindu, Jain, Sikh, and Buddha. Today's topic is the wonder that is the Hindu temple, and it is a topic that I think is very close to everybody's hearts. Anybody that's a Hindu that visits temples for darshan and for other reasons as well finds it very appealing, interesting, and close to our hearts. So I thought this would be a great fun for us to embark on the journey of our discovery of our culture or rediscovery of our culture and heritage. For 2026, as part of the Sanatan Dharma group, we are planning a full calendar of talks on various topics of interest to us. Stay tuned for those announcements, and I'll be sharing those information about the talks as they get finalized and on the calendar, so that you can register with them, share it with your friends within the community as well. This call will be recorded and will be available for replay within 24 hours. So let me first start by introducing our speaker, Mr. Pankaj Saxena. Pankaj Saxena is the author of the best-selling book, Swayambodh and Shatrubodh. He also writes on Hindu temples, art, literature, history, and culture. His writing explains the beauty of Sanatan Dharma through stories about traditions, communities, and culture. He has a deep interest in cultural anthropology, evolutionary biology, and ecology, and has visited and documented more than 1,600 Hindu temples. He has been writing articles and reports for various portals and organizations. He's also a co-founder of Brihat. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Pankaj. So we can start with your presentation. The plan is that you will present for about 30 minutes or so, post which we will get into a Q&A session. And I'm really excited to see what you have to present to us today. And with that, I'll hand it off to you. Please take it from here.
Thank you, and namaste Sanjay ji and everyone here in the room for giving me this opportunity to present this presentation to you. I've always been very passionate about temples, and this started just with a passion. I stumbled upon some temples, some great temples in India. For example, the first one was Konark in Odisha. And that opened my eyes to what our ancestors really did, because we came from a generation in which we were taught that not much great was done in India, in the past few centuries. But when I stumbled upon it, it opened a whole new universe to me. And that started me on a journey. I started formally studying architecture, sculpture, and related subjects. And that journey still goes on. So without much delay, I'll share my screen, Sanjay ji.
Yes,
and start the presentation.
All right. This is where typically things, we face glitches, but looks like this is working.
Thankfully so.
Yeah.
Thankfully so. Continue to share. I hope this is okay. So we'll discuss a little about history. More than that, architecture, the economy that is related to it as an ecosystem as the temple is, and of course the practices that are related to it. So first of all, let us understand temple as a structure first. For example, if you visit a physical building, because there is a physical building aspect to a temple. So once you enter, what are those parts, different parts? Many of you might, of course, know about all of these features and many of these features, but just systematically, let us go through it once, and then we can proceed on the next parts. So, of course, the most important part of a temple is the Garbhagriha, where the Devta resides. Now, this word Garbhagriha literally means a womb, just like a womb of a mother is warm, is moist, and is the place where, life is birthed. And similarly, that is how the temple is taken. So Garbhagriha is where the deity is, where the deity and where the Chetna, that consciousness of deity is supposed to be born when the deity is invoked in the temple by the Archaka. So Garbhagriha is the most important part of a temple. Now, I once took an interview of R. Nagoswami. He was one of the greatest archaeologists of India. He has done a lot of works. He has written a lot of works. Was very deep into archaeology. He managed many posts in ASI for a long period of time, and he was also instrumental in providing the evidence for Ram Janmabhoomi case in many areas also. So once I was interviewing him, and I asked, how old is the Hindu temple? So before that, I wrote an entire article, a long form article on how old is the Hindu temple based on various evidences. But before that, he asked me a certain questions which are very interesting before we go deeper into the lecture. He said, what according to you the Hindu temple? Because before how old it is, you need to know what is a Hindu temple as a structure, he asked. So I told him, of course, there is a Garbhagriha, a Shikhar, a Mandap, and that's the temple. He said, okay, let's remove the temple. The Garbhagriha still remains, the Shikhar still remains. There is a deity and the puja, the archana goes on. Would you still consider a temple? I said, yes, of course, I would. So he said, okay, let's make the walls plainer, remove the Shikhar, but the puja and the deity is there in the Garbhagriha and the puja still goes on. Will you still consider a temple? I started getting the gist of it. I said, yes. He said, now let us just also remove the walls and it's a vigraha under a tree, an icon. We do not use the word idol because that's a wrong translation in Rajiv Malhotra's work, untranslatable. So vigraha is, we use it as it is. Icon is clear, nearer to it. So a vigraha under a tree, would you constitute that as a temple? So I said, yes. And so in essence, he said, if it's a vigraha, which is akhandit, which is akhand in its pristine original form and is under worship, then even if it's a freestanding vigraha, that's considered a temple. So the deity, a living deity in the sense that his puja and archana goes on, is actually the most essential part of a temple and in essence a temple. So we should keep that in mind. But we are of course a great civilization, so we kept adding more parts to it to incorporate more different dimensions to the temple. And as we grew, more sophisticated, richer as a civilization in culture, in technology, and in, of course, economy also, we kept making the temple richer and richer in many, many aspects. So, but the most important part, of course, is the Garbhagriha. The most critical part of a temple is the Garbhagriha, where the Devta resides. So, before we go deeper, this language also is extremely critical, where the Devta resides. So, practicing Hindus don't consider it just a symbolically done thing where a vigraha, an icon is used where he's a symbol or it is a symbol of something else. They really know that it is the deity that is there. When the archak, when the priest invokes the deity actually comes and visits that vigraha and that vigraha becomes the deity. So for them, that's why this language is used all throughout the Shastras where the Devta really resides. Now, four walls with a flat roof. This is one of the oldest temples that are found, although some scholars say that Shikhar was always there. But some of the oldest temples that are found intact. There is mention of temple in Ramayana and Mahabharata too, Devalaya word and Devayatan. These two words are used frequently, which were the words for temple in ancient era. So it tells you that there were temples, characters are shown of Ramayana and Mahabharata shown going to these temples. So the temples existed then also, but it's also a matter of a different lecture that how old it is. But earlier the Hindu temple was built in more temporary material. So the traces don't survive as much. So some of the oldest temples are this in Sanchi in 4th century CE, very well articulated pillars, but otherwise a planar temple. Then this is Kankali Devi Tigva, 5th century CE, which is also flat roofed. But then coming to 5th and 6th century CE, you start seeing elaborate shikhar on the temple. We'll understand what these shikharas are. later on in the lecture. But then from 5th century also, there are extant examples. So when I am telling you all of these dates, please keep in mind these are the extant examples. That doesn't mean they may not have existed before, but these are just the fully created, fully formed temples that are still found after all the destruction and all the passage of time. So now I will tell you that what are the parts of a temple and how they are classified a little, and then we'll go on to its philosophy. So here you see basic temple in Bateshwar near my birthplace Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh. It's a simple temple, very small temple where there is a garbha and on it rises a shikhar. There is not much mandap or another buildings attached to it. But let us go to this structure. This is actually a plan of a Khajuraho temple, great Khajuraho temple. So here the pradakshina path, because in temple one of the most important things that you do after darshan is to take pradakshina, you circumambulation, you go around the temple. So in some temples that pradakshina path, the path of circumambulation, is inside the temple. Those are called as Sandhar temples, like this one in Galganath and Pattadakal, where pradakshina path is inside, you see. And then there is Nirandhar temples where the pradakshina path is outside. So there is an open platform, and then you go around it. Here the pradakshina path, this is another temple, a smaller temple in Khajuraho, and there you can, it's open, you can go around the temple in the open. So this is the first classification that the Shastras and the text talk about. Then the second part of the temple is mandap. So Garbhagriha is where the deity resides, very importantly. Mandap is where the devotees gather. So mandap is simply, we also use this word at many places, including very civil purposes in marriage customs and all. We talk of, creating a mandap, installing a mandap. Mandap is simply a roof on 4 pillars. It might have walls, it might not have walls, it might have windows, it might not have windows, but simply a roof and 4 pillars. So mandap is generally people create to sit, to stand, to do different activities. So this is where the devotees gather. It's right in front of the Garbhagriha. And this is where the devotees gather, where the Garbhagriha is where the deity resides. Now mandap can be without roof and very small, like this, one of the Khajuraho temples. You see here, if you see on the right hand side, it's a very small mandap with very flat roof. But 2-3 people can actually fit in there. So it can be without roof and very small, and it can be with a shikhar of its own. This is one of the most beautiful temples that I've ever seen in Jagat, Rajasthan. It survived intact from the medieval invasions. This is called Ambika Mata Temple Jagat. And here you see on right hand side is the mandap, the smaller building. The smaller part of this temple is the mandap. And you see it's beautifully articulated. It's called Samvaran style of shikhar. We'll discuss it later on. This mandap is always a little lower than the Garbhagriha shikhar. So that's the relation between the mandap, shikhar of the mandap and shikhar of the Garbhagriha. So this is how they are connected. Sometimes they are connected, can be, and with a shikhar of its own, and sometimes they can be free. So here, earlier in Ambika Mata temple, here it is attached. As you see, it's one building. In architecture, they are conjoined. But here you see, this is another great temple in Rajasthan, Ghateshwar Mahadev Badoli. Absolutely wonderful temple. Everyone should visit it once. Here the mandap, on the right hand side, the building that you see, where most devotees gather, it's a Mahamandap, a bigger mandap. Now it's detached, completely detached. You see there is a space between that mandap and the smaller mandap that's attached to the main temple here, Ghateshwar Mahadev. So this also happens, and it can be of any type. In Kerala, generally, the mandapas are detached. And there can be a series of mandap. So here is Kandariya, one of the most beautiful and exquisite temples that you will ever visit, ancient temples that you will ever visit, which is this, Kandariya Mahadev in Khajuraho. Here you see there are 3 mandapas. On the left-hand side, if you start, the smallest one, it is called as the Mukh Mandap, where you start entering. Then the second one is Ardha Mandap, half mandap, which is higher than the Mukh Mandap, but still smaller than the largest mandap. And the third shikhar, the second highest, is the Maha Mandap, where it's huge. Most of the devotees, a lot of devotees can gather. It's open on 3 sides, open in the sense there are windows on 2 sides, and of course the other mandap, series of mandap on the third side. On fourth side, it opens on the Garbhagriha. It leads to the Garbhagriha. And of course, the Garbhagriha and the Shikhar is the highest part of a mandap. So there can be series of mandapas. They can be attached. They can be free. They can be without roof. They can be with roof. All of this has been allowed in the Shastra. So sometimes we think about Hindu Shastras and Hindu temples that they are very rigid. They are not very rigid. They give you a template to build upon. How you worship the deity, of course, the Shastra will have some instruction. How some basic core has to be created will be there in the Shastra, but other things are left to the ingenuity of the community that is building that temple, the community that runs that temple, the Shilpis, the architects, iconographers, those who are involved with the entire process. So that much freedom is given. You can articulate mandap in many different ways, but certain things are fixed, which are there in the Shastras. Now it can be open with sloping roofs also. This is a very beautiful Devaki temple in Mashel, Goa. So there are very few temples to Devaki, but this is Devaki Krishna temple, him with his mother. So this is another way that temples are, temple mandapas are built. So these are the 3 main parts of the temple. I've already told you, because it was more relatable part of the temple, about the mandap, and we have already talked about the Garbhagriha. Between the Garbhagriha and mandap, there is another smaller part which is called as Antaral. Antaral, as the word says, is the intermediate space between Garbhagriha and mandap, the place which joins mandap and Garbhagriha. And Antaral is like this. This is Khajuraho Kandaraya Mahadev from outside, and this place actually joins mandap on right hand side and Garbhagriha on left hand side. So Antaral is where actually the priest resides. So here, if you see, Garbhagriha is where the deity resides, Antaral is where the priest resides, mandap is where the devotees gather. So these are the 3 important parts of the temple. I will run along because we need to discuss a lot of things. Dhwaj Stambh is and Deep Stambh, they are sometimes they are one, sometimes they are separated. But it's a very important part of a temple, because whenever there is an important festival, whenever something important is going, a dhwaj is always installed to declare that a great festival is taking place. Then there is also a dhwaj, Deep Stambh, where diyas are offered, lit. And then there is this Deep Stambh. This is the Harsiddhi Mata temple in Ujjain. These Deep Stambhs are very famous now. After internet and all, they have become very famous. Now, gates are of various types, toranas, because when you enter a temple, you're entering a spiritual realm symbolically. So they build the architecture in a way in which you are made to feel that you're crossing one realm, which is more mundane, and you're crossing into another realm, which is more sacred. So a ritual passage is done. The ritual passage, you are made to feel through architecture that you are passing off from one sphere to another sphere. So these are called as toranas. This is this toran is which means simply a gate, is in Mukteshwar temple, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. One of the freestanding toranas, extremely beautiful. You have to see it actually there, to go there and see its entire exquisite beauty. This is another temple. This is in Rajasthan. Sorry, this is in Gujarat, Vadnagar. And then Gopuram. So Gopuram, those who are from South India know it very well, that Gopuram is the gate. It means the gate. A lot of North Indians think Gopuram is actually the temple. No, it's not the temple. This structure that you see is the superstructure of the gate. On 4 sides of a temple, because of Dravidian temples have the structure of concentric squares, where at the center is the Garbhagriha, the main temple, which is small, but then there will be a courtyard around it where the devotees will gather. And then there are in many bigger temples, there are many courtyards. And at the outermost courtyard, there are huge gates, which are called as Gopurams. So these are Gopurams. This Gopuram is that of the great Brihadishwar temple, Tanjavur, the highest freestanding temple right now. Earlier it used to be Konark, but Konark, the Garbhagriha collapsed a long time ago. So now it's Brihadishwar temple, Tanjavur, Tamil Nadu. Then there is Bali Peat. So when you enter a temple, you actually enter with offering for the deity. Bali does not mean just killing an animal. In Shakta temples, it is an animal also. But in most of the temples, whatever you take, vegetables, fruits, they are also considered as something to offer, something to sacrifice to the deity. And also symbolically, you're meant to put up your ego at this peak. It's generally near the Dhwajastambh before you enter the mandap. So you're supposed to offer your ego, put your ego there, and then enter the temple. So you are fitter to receive the grace of the deity when you stand in the mandap and have darshan of the deity in the Garbhagriha. So this is generally the style in a Dravidian temple, Gopuram. Then Dhwajastambham, near Dhwajastambham, you see there is Bali Peat, and then there is Mandap and Sanctum, which is Garbhagriha. Prakaram is the courtyard. So this is the Krishna Vitthal temple in Hampi, Vijayanagar, Karnataka, and this is the courtyard of that. Now, very quickly, let me go through three major categories. We have regional variety. There is instruction in the Shastras, but as I said, Shastras give some basic templates, but then they tell you to, there is all the possibility to extrapolate on it, to make it, individualize it, make it contemporary, make it according to the time and place. So as the Hindu temple evolved, it developed three basic varieties: Nagar, Vesar, Dravid. Nagar means, this is according to the location of the temple. Nagar is most of North India. Vesar, we'll discuss at third. Dravid is in the 4 and 5 southern states. Dravid is south. And Vesar is a mixture of the Nagar style and the Dravid style, which exists mostly in Karnataka. So Vesar exists in Karnataka, Nagar in most of North India, and also Maharashtra, and Dravid in Telangana, Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, mostly these, but also in some temples. Now in contemporary times, modern temples, even in Badrinath or even in Uttarakhand, you will find some Dravid temples, but I'm talking about the classical era. So this is a Nagar temple where the shikhar looks like it's jumbled together like mountain peaks. Here in this example, once again of Lakshman temple, Khajuraho. Dravid temple, it's a pyramid. So the shikhar looks like a pyramid, tiers of many levels and many tiers stacked upon one another. So that is the primary feature of Dravidian temple with a stupi or shikhar at the top. Vesar, this is the Chennakeshav temple in Somnathpur, Karnataka. Vesar is, tiers are retained, but the shikhar is circular. So it mixes the both the features of both Nagar and Dravid temples. Now we'll have to go into nitty-gritties and it will take a lot more time. So maybe some other time. But they mix certain features of North Indian Nagar temples and also Dravid temples. Now Nagar itself, because Nagar, you see, if you start from Kashmir and what is now Pakistan, and in the west in Sindh, and then Rajasthan, and go up till Bengal, Vang and Assam, and here you come to Maharashtra, it's a huge area. Right now, crores and people, more than 70-80 crores of people live here. Even in India, it's around populated by 60 crores or something more than that, I guess, more 60 to 70. So it's a huge area. It has many sub-varieties. This is called as Latin. Latin comes from Lata, which is a creeper. So at the center of the shikhar, you see, it looks like a creeper of these mesh window patterns is climbing up. That is called as Latin. This is another example. So a creeper of mesh window patterns. Second variety is Shekhri. Shekhri is where a jumble of different shikhars is climbing towards the top, like a real mountain, because the temple is supposed to reflect a real mountain. So here, different, parts of different temples climbing up to the shikhar. Bhumij is the third variety, where the pyramidal tiers, sort of reminiscent of Dravid, they are retained, but then at the center there is also Lata. Famsan is simply pyramidal tiers, slabs of pyramid. It is the oldest style because it's the easiest to build. And there is Vallabhi. Vallabhi is cylindrical structure, rectangular structure. So the shikhar on it is called as Vallabhi. So you don't need to get into too much of nitty-gritty, but these are the five basic Nagar varieties. And Dravid is generally one variety, various variants of it. Vesar is also one variety. Nagar has many varieties. So after this, let us go towards to understand what is a Hindu temple in very brief. Many dimensions of the temple. First of all, it is a spiritual center. We cannot forget that. I'm going to talk about different aspects and dimensions of the temple, but first and foremost, it is a spiritual center where darshan takes place. Now, what is the act of darshan? In very brief, when a devotee comes in mandap and when he requests the archaka to actually invoke the deity, and when the priest invokes the deity, and then it is supposed that the stone vigraha or the metal vigraha that is there, it really comes alive. The deity comes in that vigraha. At that moment, when you have the darshan, that is called the act of darshan. It is also supposed to mean when you enter from outside to inside, that outside all the samsara is portrayed on the temple. As you keep going towards the center, towards having darshan, sights and sounds lessen. Successively they drop. So it's an indication that sansar is dropping and your indriya nigra is happening. The act of visiting a temple is equivalent to the process of indriya nigra, where you are contracting your senses inside, so that when you have darshan of the deity, you have only deity in mind. So outside there will be many characters. Inside, as you go, lesser characters. In mandap, lesser characters. At the gate of Garbhagriha, only the Dwarpalas, and inside Garbhagriha, only the deity. So it's supposed to make your chitta very ekagra. The whole point of all Indic disciplines like yoga, meditation, going to a temple is to make your chitta ekagra, focused on one single concept idea, so that you can, reach the higher states of consciousness. So that moment when you have that darshan, when the sansar is eliminated, when your indriya nigra is supposed to have happened, and when you have in that pure state of chitta, you have darshan of your own truest self, because the deity in Advait, it is said that all of us are gods, all of us are Brahma. We just have forgotten our true nature. And self-realization is the act of knowing your true nature. The act of going to a temple, in a way, is akin to the act of self-realization, climbing those states of consciousness. Not that everyone does it, but if you were to do it with pure chit and with complete charya and over again, this is the effect that it is supposed to have. So that act of darshan which happens is the most critical thing when you go to a temple. That's why most of our ancestors, they are not interested in the art outside, in the other things, in the peripheral things, in the sightseeing. They only have one pointed focus, that let us get darshan of the deity in the Garbhagriha. That is their entire focus. Of course, there are other things to see and watch, as we will discuss, but the most important thing, of course, is to have that darshan. That is the most primary object of going to a temple. So we should not forget that. And then it is a mutt. Mutt is an institution where sadhus and rishis gather to study, to do learning. This is the temple. This is a shot from Chidambaram Temple, Nataraj in Tamil Nadu. And Vedic scholars and other scholars studying other branches of Shastras stay inside the temples, which are huge, and study under learned masters, under other who have learned it before. So it's supposed to be a mutt where rishis, sadhus who do meditation, who do study, dhyan, sadhana, all of that. It's an institution. It's a social institution which has all of this spiritual community which lives inside it also and around it. A center of learning in other senses also. This is a shot of I took in Sringeri, and Sringeri is a beautiful place. As you enter the temple, you are supposed to, of course, leave the footwear outside, but the temple premises are so huge that they have a private river running through it. Anyone who has visited Sringeri, Math, Sharda Peetham. So private river means it's a whole jungle, forest which they have maintained as a sacred grove, because a temple is supposed to have a sacred grove around it. And they have maintained that sacred grove. A river Tunga, you must have heard of the river Tungabhadra, which runs through Hampi. But before it becomes Tungabhadra, there are two rivers, Tunga and Bhadra. So here in Sringeri, it is just the river Tung. It runs through the temple premises. So inside the temple, you pass from one side where the temples are to another side where Sri Shankaracharya live, with the Pujaniya Shankaracharya, he gives darshan. So you have to foot over, there is a foot over bridge which you have to cross. When you cross it, and you see these sites where under the trees, under many mandapas, there are students in very traditional attires who are gaining knowledge, who are studying. So a temple is, for first and foremost, also a center of learning, which where acharyas also gather. We should not forget that. Of course, it is also a center of arts, crafts, fine arts, music, dance, and singing. When I first went to Kapalishwar Temple in Chennai, I saw that a musical performance was taking place. And the poses that the dancers that was making are poses that are given in Natya Shastra, are poses that are still you can see in like in the gate of Chidambaram Temple, Nataraj Temple, Chidambaram. So it is a center of music because that musical performance was going on. Music also includes iconography. It includes, of course, it accompanies dance, it accompanies singing, and it accompanies the learning of Sanskrit and particular intonation and all the other arts that are employed to it. So it's a center of music, dance, singing. If you see the walls of a temple, there is huge sculpture on it, huge numbers of sculpture on it. There are great paintings on the ceilings and sometimes on the walls. And of course, there is architecture. So arts, crafts, fine arts also, because the deity in the Archana Puja of the deity demands a lot. For example, offering garlands, offering different types of bhog, which involves a lot of fine arts. So a temple is also a center of that. If you live in and near the temple, you see that that also happens in it. It's a socio-economic center. I will just be finishing up in a few moments, but these are some very important things I will just like to elaborate on it. It's a socio-economic center where all kinds of activities take place. This is a shot that I took of Sri Ranganath Swami Temple in Tiruchirappalli. Ranganath Swami is the largest, not the highest is Sanjavur. It's the largest functioning Hindu temple. It means the square feet, square meters of area that it covers. And there is a famous saying about this temple, that this temple is not within the city is within the temple. Now, it sounds absurd, but if you go to this place, actually the river, it's located on a riverine island. River Kaveri divides itself into two parts and then again joins, and so it creates an island. On that island is situated this temple, which is so huge that half of that Sri Rangam, that part, lives inside the temple. How? This is the outermost gate, Gopuram of the temple. Actually, a small bus can go through it. So when I first entered, a bus was passing through and I was so surprised. I was inside the temple. There were vehicles running, there were banks, there were shops of food, of every other item. There were all kinds of activities that were going on. So somebody was selling something, food items, other items. I was surprised to see, like I said, banks and ATMs. Everything was inside. So it was like an entire universe, an entire city, which were incorporated inside the ambit of the sacred, exuding from the sacred center that is the Hindu temple. So that's a basic plan of it. That's why it is a socio-economic center. If you go to any temple, any great temple, you will see that so many economic activities take place. There is a routine charya of the deity. As I said, there is bhog, there is certain dresses that he needs. There is water which has to be kept, taken from a certain well, or it has to be, certain rituals have to go through it. Then when the devotees come, whole new economy booms. As we all know, Ayodhya is now raking in thousands of crores because so many devotees have started coming in. They need a place to live, they need to eat, they need transport and all that. And we know how that economy booms in a center. Deepa Durai Swami, in her very good book on Agama, says that we didn't build temples at the center of the cities. Our cities actually grew out of the temples. Our temples were the economy generators. They created temples. If you remove a temple, an important temple from many great Indian cities like Chidambaram, like Tiruchirappalli, Srirangam, or like Bajnath in Uttarakhand, actually there will not be much left in the town. That entire town exists and everything else exists. All the economy exists because the temple is there. So they were the economy generators, because Hindus are told in their shastras and in their stories to keep doing Tirth Yatra. It's a necessary part of their life, that they have to go from one part to another. It integrates different parts of the country, of course, in one culture. First of all, that's a very important part of it. It also makes you more acceptable towards the differences of the other. And it does integration without centralization in many ways. So Tirth Yatra is considered extremely important. For example, they have We know that there are Char Dham. Now, it's a ready-made bucket list. 12 Jyotirlings. It's a ready-made bucket list. Even people who are so-called illiterate, they will know that they have to go to 12 Jyotirlings, 51 Shaktipitas, and Char Dhams and various other circuits like this. So this was a major exhortation to Hindus that they should go on Tirth Yatras. That created an economy, and that has generated a lot of power inside Hindu society and Indian society through all of these centuries. It's a social welfare institution because it runs a lot of institutions. If you go to Goa, if you go to Sringeri, if you go to any great temple, you'll see that there is a hospital attached to it, where either people are treated for free or for a very, very small nominal cost. Then there are hostels where students study, and all the expenses that are needed for a person who's studying, they are borne. Then there is mess, of course, where people can eat. There is Annakshetram, where 24/7 these bhandaras, as they are called in the north, and this kitchen is continued all throughout the day, at many hours throughout the day, where you can, if you're hungry, you can just go and eat there. So if you are sick, you can get treated. If you have no shelter, you can take refuge under the temple. If you have no food to eat, you can go to the Anakshetram and have. If you're old and you have no other place, there many of these temples also run old age homes. So it's basically a center which does a lot of social welfare, but by keeping the sacred at the center, sacred principle at the center. But most surprisingly, it's also a legal aid clinic. So this aspect of the temple surprised me a lot. This temple is in Lakshmi Narayan, is called Lakshmi Narayan Temple in Chamba, Himachal Pradesh. When I went to this temple, there was a platform right in front of the temple, and there was a plaque on it which said Nyaya Chabutra, which in English means as a legal platform. So I said, what does this mean? So they said, we don't go to district court or high court or Supreme Court for all the petty, these disputes that we have. For smaller disputes, we always come to the temple. The authorities of the temple and the city and the town, they sit together. We take Bhagwan as Sakshi and decide all our disputes here. 90% of our disputes do not go to the court. Now imagine how what subsidy this part of the temple as an institution gives to Sanatan, gives to Bharatvarsha. So right now, as somebody calculated that the queue in Supreme Court is 387 years if you go by line, if you go one by one chronologically. So we know how absurd that it has gotten, because everyone goes to these legal courts and court of law for all the disputes. Some disputes cannot be decided in the town, for example, like murder or violent crime or anti-national crime. They cannot be decided here. Of course, we have courts of law for that. But other smaller disputes, like between a husband and wife and two brothers or two neighbors, these are generally decided at places like this. After this temple, I actually found many temples all over India, which is still function as a huge legal aid clinic, a paralegal aid clinic, where people go to solve their problems. So it performs, as you see, it performs many social welfare activities. It performs many dimensions, many aspects of state. So it doesn't usurp. By keeping sacred at the center, it performs many services that now or in other modern setup, only the state is supposed to fulfill, like social welfare, like old age home, like this paralegal aid clinic, help. So all of these also used to happen in temples when they were at their prime. Most of the great temples did that. Now lesser and lesser so, but that sacred ensemble still exists. So these were the concepts. I tried to show you the different parts of the temple. I tried to show you the different dimensions of temple as an institution, because if you go to many of these great temples, it's an organic living being, not just in the sense that the deity is living, but also in the sense that it interacts with communities and individuals that live around it. And in ancient era, when kings and great businessmen used to donate to the land, to the temple, land and cash and kind, they would donate to the temple would donate the land back to people who really needed them. So it was also an institution where wealth was redistributed. and where everyone got elevated, because no matter what you did, at the center was this great puja archana that was going on of the deity. So temple has many dimensions: economic dimensions, legal dimensions, social welfare dimensions. But by combining all of it to the sacred, and by interacting with individuals and communities organically, very physically, organically living around it, it created a society which was more sacred than a society in which the temple doesn't exist, let's say. So that's how we created a spiritually elevated, overall spiritually elevated society. That is the model of, like Sri Aurobindo says, that we need to reach a higher, humanity in total also needs to reach a higher state of consciousness, stage of consciousness, in order to, forego some of the worst parts of our behavior and our individuality right now. So temples were a medium. Temples are still the medium in which you can attain that. So this is in whole the many different ecosystem dimensions of the temple, also temple as a building. Now I will quickly run through some of the most exquisite examples of temple. It will take 2 to 3 minutes. Real examples and real pictures. So this is the Brihadishwar temple in Tanjavur. It's the highest 216 feet high shikhar. This is another shot. It was built more than 1000 years ago. It's still standing strong and very functioning. The puja, the archana has been going on uninterrupted. This is an aerial shot. It has a 25-ton dome resting on an 80-ton granite. This is another Brihadishwar temple. This one was built by Rajaraj Chol. This one was built by his son. So it was also called as Brihadishwar temple, which is simply the big temple, but it's lesser than the other big temple, but more exquisite in sculpture. Gangai Koncholparam, one of the finest Chola sculptures can be found here, as you see here. Shiva doing the hair of the king, and in that way sanctioning that the king has divine authority. Pancharathas, Mahabalipuram, as many of you would have been, these are rock cut temples. Earlier, Hindu temples used to be rock cut. Later on, structural temples came. This is they call it Panch Pandav temple, but they really don't have anything to do with the Pandavas. They are simply 5 temples carved out from one rock in different styles. So you see a lot of different styles here of the earlier Hindu Dravid temples. This is structural temples, one of the earliest freestanding temples. Structural meaning where you put different pieces of stone together. You don't rock cut it. You don't take it out from a single rock. You combine a lot of rocks and you create it. So this is the shore temple, aerial shots of it. This is a painting of Bhagirath, in the Avtaran of Ganga on earth, and him doing penance and this happening. This is another panel in a nearby cave temple, Mahishasur Mardini, one of the most exquisite, because you can see actually the direction and the dynamism in stone sculpture. Kailashnath Kanchipuram is one of the most beautiful and earliest temples. Actually, Hindu temple architecture reached its height here. It is the sculpture here, the architecture is wonderful, as you see here. Some of the most central Puranic and Aitihasic stories are carved on the walls, and many different parts of architecture are completely articulated here. Sri Ranganath Swami Trichurpalli, as we discussed earlier, now the Dravid temples have a structure of that the central temple will have a courtyard around it, and as I said, there will be many courtyards with many gates. This temple has 7 courtyards. So in this shot, you can see actually 4 courtyards. So 7 courtyards, meaning 7 gopurams in a line, and then you have to cross 7 courtyards, then you reach 6th courtyard. When you cross, then you reach the innermost garbhagriha. This is Arunachaleshwar temple in Tiruvannamalai, Tamil Nadu. The whole temple town, this is another temple town which is built on the grids of the temple which exude from that temple. The whole temple town comes up just to serve temple and the economy that generates around it. Meenakshi Amman temple we have also seen in Madurai. These gopurams are a little late, these high gopurams, 18th century actually. But it is an ancient temple. The temple itself, the garbhagriha, is ancient. This is Kandari Mahadev in Nagar Temple, Khajuraho. One of the most beautiful things and that you will see in life, one of the most beautiful experiences that you will have in life. Dula Dev with a Saptarath plan. We will discuss the Rath thing in some other lecture. I did not have time today, but it's one of the most beautiful technique of creating more space in a temple. Adinath Temple, Khajuraho. This is another Latin variety. And look at this sculpture. On the left-hand side, you see Bhuvaraha, you see Vishnu Lakshmi, and you see a lot of other sculpture, a lot of erotic couple, some erotic couples also. So this is Khajuraho. Bateshwar, this is near my place. Bateshwar, earlier there used to be more than 200 temples standing on one platform. Now there are around 44. Mundhera, this is the westernmost great sun temple right now it's located in Gujarat. And here you see temple tank. Temple tank is also an integral part of a temple. It's right near the temple where most of the water which is used in the various activities of the institution that are used. One of the closer shots of this temple. Here the mandap is also freestanding. So it used to be beautiful temple, now it's destroyed, completely gutted. But the mandap is exquisite. It's a freestanding mandap, and some of the shots you would have visited and you would have seen, they are extremely beautiful. Rani ki Vav. Now, Vav is a step well, which are famous in Gujarat and Rajasthan to conserve water. And our ancestors didn't leave even step wells free. They carved it with deities, with the sculpture. They converted it into a temple. So it's a Baudi, it's a Bauli, but it's also a temple. It's a step well, but it's also a temple. Oshia, this is another great temple in Rajasthan. Great cluster of temples. There are around 16 temples here. Ambika Mata temple. This is one of the most ancient temples which survived all invasions. It's hidden in a small temple behind a hill, so not many invaders reached it. So it has survived. And this is one of the rare ancient temples built in marble. Marble is a stone which was used later on. Earlier, the most preferred stone was soapstone and sandstone and granite. This is Sasbo temple in Nagda, Rajasthan. Now, Sasbo has got nothing to do with the mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. That's what the modern ASI people, when they found two temples, they called them Sasbo. Generally, what happened is that a Shiv king, when he would build a Shiv temple, he would, or his successors would also build, or his queen would also build a Vishnu temple to honor the other deity, other major deity also. Whenever they built a Vishnu temple, they would also build a Shiv temples. And so this combination, two temples came to be known as Sasbo temples. I've run out of time,
yes.
Sanjay ji.
Yes,
So just ending in 1 minute.
Yeah.
Ending.
Please go ahead.
You wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to say, just had some questions.
Yeah. Just one minute, and I'll just run through. This is Hindimba. This is the Pahadi structure. This is in Manali. Many of you would have been. It's built to withstand the snow of the hilly areas. So another style which is lesser known but also existent. This Baijnath temple is also in Himachal Pradesh, but built in the traditional stone style. Martan temple, which displayed some features of Greek temples, because they had some constant interaction with the Greeks and the Greek civilization. But now it's mostly destroyed. As you know, most of the temples in Kashmir are destroyed. This style is that of Bengal, which was created terracotta. This is all in terracotta, brick and terracotta, which was created after the first wave of invasions, medieval invasions. Then they created this. So this is a latest style, but very beautiful also. Bhitargaon in Kanpur, one of the oldest brick temples. Bhoramdev, this is called the Khajuraho of Chhattisgarh. Kailashnath and Lora, according to me, this is one of the greatest wonders in the world. Two-storied temple with more than 1.5 lakh of sculpture carved out from a single rock in Maharashtra. Virupaksh temple, Patadakal, Sun temple, Konark. Now this is just the mandap. The Garbhagriha is gone. Imagine what it would have been had it been standing still now. Lingaraj Bhubaneswara, Jagannath Puri, in the same style. These are the Elephanta caves. When the Portuguese invaders came, they used to do target practice. This is Ardhanarishwar. And they used to do target practice on this exquisite sculpture, so most of them are destroyed. Only this one remained intact, Elephanta Sadashiva. Veer Narayan is a Hoysar temple, Vesar temple in Karnataka. This is another Vesar temple. This is another Vesar temple in Karnataka. And this is the Kerala style. This is the famous Anantapur Kasargod temple where a vegetarian crocodile lives. Some other day, I'll maybe tell you the story. So I'm sorry I took more time, but actually I could also not go into many stories which were very crucial, but maybe we'll follow up with other deeper aspects, because this has created segues for 4 and 5 verticals where we can actually go deeper into. So as we explore it more, I will be happy to go into all those segues. So thank you so much, Sanjay ji, for being patient. I
Thank you,
let
Pankaj ji. So
overshot the time. You can ask the questions, please.
yeah. So I've got some questions as well, and if anybody from the audience has questions, again, drop it in the chat, and I will pick it up from there.
Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah, you can stop sharing now.
Yeah.
So my first question really is, we go to temples to pray, to worship.
Yeah.
What in your view, or how, in your view, how can we deepen our spiritual experience when we go to a temple?
Yeah. So 2 or 3 things which the Shastras recommend and the wise men recommend is, first of all, you at least 3-4 days before you visit a great temple, you should regulate your diet. Have more fruits, have more sattvic food, as they say, and regulate your sleep, regulate your diet. Also start doing the nam jap of the deity that you are going to visit. So first this, and second, when you
When you
actually
say
go
Nam
to
Jap, you mean
of the mantra of the
the
deity.
mantra of the deity. Okay.
Yeah. Mantra of the deity, because certain mantras are very public, certain are secret, which are supposed to be given only by a guru to his disciple. But certain, like for example, Om Namah Shivaya or Bhagavate Vasudeva, all of these mantras are very public, anyone can chant them. Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, all of these are very famous and very public mantras which you should chant while having darshana. So second thing is that you should chant a mantra. And when you go to a temple, if there is a queue, I would recommend go through the queue, even if it takes 2-3 hours. So of course you can take the VIP darshan. That's not so. There is no bad tag attached to it. If we do not have time, of course, it's better to have some darshan instead of having no darshan. So I will recommend that you go do that. But if you want to deepen the experience, if you stand in that queue and you go through all that sweat and pain, but constantly keep chanting the name of Bhagwan, actually that your body and mind becomes pure, and you eliminate all other thoughts from your mind by the time you reach Garbhagriha. So that deepens the experience in my experience. A lot of Jaini places, they are very strict, because most of the Hindu temples now have cable cars and all of these queues and all, which have made, like Kedarnath also has helicopters and all. But Jainis are so strict that they will say if you have to climb 1200 steps, you do climb 1200 steps, or you do not come. So I'm not saying we take that path, but I have myself experienced that when I go to these temples, by the time you reach in the Garbhagriha, actually your body and mind are actually cleansed. You are in a better position to receive the energy of the deity, so of that place, so it becomes better.
Speaking of Garbhagriha, so as devotees, we are not allowed inside the Garbhagriha, correct?
Yeah.
So that is the domain of the priest.
That is the domain of the priest, and he also enters only when the deity has to be invoked. Traditionally, ideally, he enters only when he has to be invoked, when certain ritual has to take place. So he also should not sit idly. His place is also the antaral, where he permanently can sit and stand. But Garbhagriha is for the deity, but of course the priest has to enter to do all the rituals. But certain temples in North Indian Shiva temples are created in a way in which you have sparsha darshan. So you go and you touch the Shivaling, you touch the Pindi. So that is considered an important part of having darshan. So in those temples, you are actually allowed to go to the Garbhagriha. So Hindu temple has a lot of diversity. In Kerala, Agama, in Kerala style of temples, you are the farthest from the deity, because आप मंडप के बाहर खड़े होंगे, there will be two mandapas in between. The deity will be in Garbhagriha very far. Some shangar will be done, but the diyas, it will be perpetually dark. Some diyas will be there, and you will be only very not very significantly, but very in a very small way, you will be able to have darshan of the deity, and you are 3 gates away from the deity, because they say the energy of the deity is so much that you will not be able to partake it if you touch it or go to the garbhagriha. So that is the Kerala Agama. But in North India and in many other places, you do go. In Assam, like Ma Kamakhya, which is a very different sect and temple, you actually go, not only touch the Swayambhu Vigraha, but you take the water which is coming, that natural spring which is coming, the prasad of the deity, and you take the tirth inside, you take it, you drink it. That only is considered darshana.
I see.
Once you do it. So this is the diversity of our country and our tradition.
Got it. I've got one other question, which is a little, actually, I've got a question from our audience members. What is the correct name of
For idol.
for idol? Yeah. How do you refer to?
Yeah. So actually, as I said, it's an untranslatable. I use Vigraha all the time, but if you have to use an English word, icon is closer. So it's a representation of the deity. So that's okay. So icon is closer, but I would say if you are Indian and once you have, popularized the use of Vigraha, like jungle is a word which, even in West, even it is accepted as a word in English. We should popularize the word Vigraha because that's the correct word of the deity. That vessel in which the deity is supposed to come and worthy of coming. That vessel in which deity can come.
Got it. Got it. And so Vigraha, what is the Sanskrit meaning? Is this question, I guess.
So where the correct I will the correct Sandhi Vichhed of that is different, but that means that part that which is able to receive the Shakti of the deity, where you create it as a graha, where the Shakti of the deity is very well received into that vessel. So that perfect vessel for it.
Got it.
So they say, is it a stone? Is it deity? It is a stone until the deity is invoked. As soon as it is invoked, it becomes deity, but that vessel has to be perfect. So there are certain ways to consecrate it. There are certain ways to make it better to receive the deity.
Another question is, what is the reason for the erotic carvings on some of these temples, particularly around in Madhya Pradesh, Khajuraho, and so on?
So it's Khajuraho is most famous or infamous for it. But let me tell you that I have been to more than 400 temples all over India, which have erotic carvings. All over it. There is not a single state where I've gone to and I've not found erotic carvings on temples. So it's not an exception, it's a rule. Okay. Now, why do they do it? Because a temple it's a huge lecture that I also have. A temple is supposed to be a exact replica of the cosmos. And so it reflects everything that happens in cosmos: violence, war, mundane things, and also, of course, food, sex, and these aspects also. So that is also depicted. That is the first reason. Another, generally you find these murtis not in the garbhagriha, never in the garbhagriha, never in, primarily in mandapa also, but on the outermost walls. And also in the antaral, the part which connects mandap and garbhagriha. So just to show symbolically that this part is the union between mandap, devotee, and deity. So that union is shown as coupling. So that's an artistic way of showing that. So, but there are various other reasons.
Very progressive, very open-minded.
Yeah, very open-minded, because at that time we didn't have, like they say, didn't have that Victorian mindset. Also on the other extreme, that always thinking in that way, both of those were not there. People were able to partake art very openly, and they had nothing against erotica.
Got it.
But they are 8%. Just last line about the erotica. In Khajuraho, if you go, Khajuraho is famous because, God forbid, if you take a guide, they will show you only that, because now after in contemporary era, that's what which excites the fancy of a lot of people. But the percentage somebody counted, the percentage of erotic sculpture in a temple is only in Khajuraho is only 8%. 92% is not erotica.
Correct.
But unfortunately, people focus only on that aspect.
Got it. One final question. This is more, I guess, on the controversy side. Can you help us understand the controversies surrounding the construction of the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir and the Ayodhya Mandir.
Yeah.
We read all kinds of things about both of these temples but while the construction was going on. Can you help us understand what
Yeah.
it was all about?
Yeah. So it takes a lot of time actually to go into the nuances and nitty-gritties.
Oh, just at
But
a high level, yeah.
yeah. So, but I'll try to give in a few dimensions of it. First of all, because of centuries of invasions and destruction, the grandness of most of the temples in some of our greatest centers like Kashi and Ujjain had disappeared because they were destroyed again and again, and they became smaller and smaller and less beautiful, less exquisite. So what happened is that they kept making temples smaller and smaller, and kept building houses, civil architecture all around it. So when the invaders came, it was not like they would find it easy to access the temple. So most of these temples, were at the center of towns in which most of the paths you can only walk in those paths. So it gives you, when the fight happens, it gives you the alley advantage. That no matter how large the armies are, by the time you reach the temple, already you have to fight hand-to-hand combat, thousands of
Mm.
devotees, and they had these ways of other secret pathways where they would take out the vigra and take the deity. Meenakshi Jain has written a whole book on it, Flight of Deities, where they would take the deity and flee, so that by the time they reach the garbhagriha, they were not able to desecrate the garbhagriha. So that's why these temples were built. Now what happens, now we have become independent, now that situation is no longer there, so you have to make them grand again. So when this government dispensation did, a lot of people who had developed vested interest, by then their houses were there, the alleyway was there, certain people had shops there, and they were also given other things. But then of course this happens that some people do not get what is due. Some mishappenings are there. So some things happened, but largely 90% it was the most necessary step to do. In most of these spaces, they had become impossible to visit. There was always this filthy muck going on around, all spread all around temples, beggars all around, which would make it impossible. If you go to a temple, your experience would become very bitter. If hundreds of temples, beggars are tugging at you. So when this government in this dispensation came, they actually made it grand, made it bigger, removed a lot of those people. Certain of those vested interest groups were also very close to Congress, Kashi especially. So they started making that. So it was not a political issue, but it became a political issue under the garb of ki they are disturbing the kshetras. Now, there are certain kshetras like Ma Kamakhya or Kedarnath, which are very eco-sensitive. So that we should be very careful before we develop, a corridor around it. But Ujjain, why should not there be a corridor? After this, after they built the corridor earlier, and I am from Madhya Pradesh, earlier it was possible to have darshan in 10 minutes. Now, if you go, it generally takes 2 hours, 3 hours. So some people say, of course, there are more queues, but we should be happy that lakhs and lakhs of more devotees are coming. The new generation, you see a lot of 16 years old, 20 years old, who are in the temple also because there is so much of a sculpture to see, so much experiences to have. So that's why it's in these places, it's important to build these corridors. It's important to make it palatable more to uh, I don't like to use that term, but Gen Z and the latest generation make it to their taste also a little.
Got it. One final question, I think, again, from my dear friend. Uh, the government owns
Yeah.
practically all the Hindu temples, correct? So who looks at their upkeep and
Yeah.
takes care of the upkeep and all of that?
So no, Kavitaji, the government does not own all the temples. So it differs from state to state. For example, in Madhya Pradesh, 99% were not. Abhi to they declared they freed all the temples, even those few which were under government control. But 99% were not under government control. Most of North India, most of the temples are actually not under government control, functioning temples. Of course, if it's a ruin, ASI will be there. If there is no Vigraha in the
Architectural
Garbhagriha,
Survey of India.
Architectural Survey of India will be there.
Mhm.
Architectural Survey of India can also be there in a functioning temple to look after, so that
Upkeep.
nobody steals the and upkeep, because they know how to do it using the right chemicals and techniques, but they don't interfere in the rituals. The body which interferes in the rituals is the Mujrahi department, which controls the revenue and which dictates the board, which priest should be there, what ritual should take place. So this happens more in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, and to a lesser extent Andhra. So it's more a South India problem of South India. There, Tamil Nadu, the situation is extremely bad. Government takes all the money, and it's there is a lot of government, like it happens in government institution, so much of corruption. They are supposed to allocate money for upkeep, but it's not properly done. So there is a lot of corruption in that temple. My organization in future is actually conducting a survey of those temples which are community run, Hindu community run, and which are extremely efficient and well managed. So we are doing a study so that we can create a report based on which we can show to the government, if they have questions, that our community is completely capable of running our own institutions in their own way. But this is how we will do it if we were to free other temples also, and this is how the transition should be done. So no, not all the temples, more so in the south, less so in the north. But even in the south, they should be freed. But before that, we have to prepare of how the transition has to be done, how the management and administration has to be run. Those objections of the government are not wrong.
True. Thank you, Pankaj. And I guess I'll like you to offer you the opportunity to make a a pitch for the book you have written recently that's become
Thank
a
you.
bestseller. Please tell
Thank you.
us, in 30 seconds or a minute, what it is about.
Yeah, so Swambodh and Shatrubodh, Hindu view of self and the world. I named it so because the words are self-explanatory. That
So
Hindu,
Shatrubodh, Swayambodh, and Shatrubodh. Please explain it.
yeah. So Swambodh is a word which means that what is the view of Hindu society of itself. At many junctures in the history of a civilization, there come some points of time where you have to think that what is the identity, what is our civilizational identity. So what is the Hindu civilization, Sanatan civilization, and then what are the ideas? So here Shatrus are not people or groups at all. They are ideas, ideologies, religious and secular ideologies, which have declared goal, which have the destruction of Hindu society and Sanatan Dharma as their declared goal. So, what are those ideas and ideologies that are there? That is the Shatrughosh. So, that in brief is Swambodh and Shatrughosh.
Thank you. And we can find this book on Amazon, I guess, right?
Amazon.com, .co.uk, .in, everywhere.
Got it. Wonderful. Wonderful. So thank you so much, Pankaj, for coming and doing this with us, for educating us, enlightening us
Thank you. It
about
was my pleasure.
the temples. We look forward to continued engagement with you. Offline, we've talked about doing perhaps even some field events as well.
Yes.
We'll certainly look forward to that discussion and see where we can take that. But again, thank you so much, and thanks to everybody for participating. This call has been recorded and will be available within the next for 24 to 48 hours for anybody that wants to replay it, or folks who have not been able to attend the call. They can come back and listen to it. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sanjay.